Well, first and foremost, it is an absolute pleasure to have you, sir. This is Mircea Balaj, is how you say it?
Close enough. It's Mircea, but honestly,
Mircea?
doesn't really matter. Yes.
I'm so sorry. I here's my biggest thing is like whenever I visit another country or whenever I meet somebody of different culture or what have you, my biggest thing is like to get that name correct and not sound like an arrogant American. So I did a bad job of that.
Nah, I've heard it pronounced so many ways, and I just like, today I'll go with this one. I like how it sounds.
So give everybody a little bit of background on who and what you who you are and what you do, because you're a pretty important person in the space.
Well, not that important, but first off, thank you for having me on your podcast. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And a little bit about me, Mircea Balaj, as you mentioned, I am a sports performance coach, which just basically what I do is I take good athletes, I make them better. I take great athletes and I make them excellent, or I do my best to do that. My area of expertise is in the pharmacological side of things. That is basically where I consider I have the most amount of knowledge. I do a lot of training and nutrition, but the pharmacological side is where I actually spend most of my time. As for which types of athletes I have worked with, I work with everybody from, Gen Pop to elite level fighters, strongmen, powerlifters, bodybuilders. So I don't focus on just one sport. I just focus on improving the athlete for the sport that he is invested in. That's about me. I've been doing this for the past, with all the whole pharmacological side of things, the past 6 years. So yeah, I'm a bit new to the scene, but I'm doing my best to learn and be the best coach I can be.
Well, you most definitely are a huge resource as far as knowledge is concerned. Let me tell you. Oh, I'm a huge fan of the cup. It's
Yeah.
freaking great.
Oh, I got
Yes.
the t-shirt to match.
Oh, I should have worn mine. God damn it. Dude, I when I wear my Doom shirt, everyone stop, like children stop me, and I go, "It's my favorite game. It's my favorite." And they're like, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah."
Yeah, I get that a lot too. I got stopped by people on my way to an airport. It's like, cool t-shirt. And I was like, what? Oh, yeah, favorite game. I wasn't
Dude,
even
I
like,
gotta tell you, like physique goal of life is just to look like the Doom guy, like just to
oh,
look like him.
absolutely.
Yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, just like the ground shakes as you walk, and you're just like tight.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So let's go into, you know what, man? You know what's a really good spot? Where do people fuck up? What's like the biggest misconceptions of like what are things that people fuck up the most often and you see the biggest improvement with the smallest tweaks?
Wow, that is such a loaded question because, we all have our little pet peeves and, you know, right now, I find that it's a lot of majoring in the minors. At one point, it was just taking too much when it comes to anabolics. Now I see just a lot of majoring in the minors, and I see a lot of people just um they focus on these small little things and they try to add this thing and that thing, and you end up with not necessarily a huge dose of one thing or two things, but you end up with all these small little bits and pieces and moving parts when it comes to sports pharmacology. And I think people are not paying attention to the things that have been tried and tested, that stood the test of time, that have been, around for, two, three, four, 5 decades, not 2, 3, 4, 5 years. So instead of investing more time in things that work, they're looking for all these like novel little, you know, research chems that some work, some don't, and some are just not well understood yet. And I see a lot of that. And I think it's great that people are thinking, laterally, and they're trying to go with experiment and see for themselves. But sometimes I think it's just you take something, you see it works, but you don't see it can have impacts over months and years of usage, and those impacts aren't always beneficial. So that's the thing that I see the most now, and I see that that's what people try to major in the minors, and they're not seeing the forest because of the trees.
Now, being more specific, what are some of the things that people are doing to live that they don't necessarily understand the repercussions months and years and the long term that they're experimenting with now?
Uh, it would depend on a lot on which compounds we're talking, but I see a lot of people right now, they're very into the GLP family of drugs. And I know we had a few conversations about GLPs, and um I think that they're interesting, they're useful, they are medications, so they do serve a medical purpose. But I think people are relying them on them a lot more than they should right now. And I see, bodybuilders using them in off season, and I'm probably going to get a lot of shit for this. But yeah, they improve your insulin sensitivity. Yeah, they allow you to stay leaner in the off season, but they also come with a cost. There's no such thing as a free ride. And even if you think it, the most simplistic level, when you're trying to eat the most food, don't you want something that increases your appetite rather than something that has even a small amount of appetite suppression? And then we could go into the fact that all of these GLP, GIP, and glucagon peptides or analogs, they work on pancreas. So you're hitting the pancreas from one, two, or even three, depending on the GLP that you're using. You're hitting it from three separate points. I'm thinking maybe that organ will start to be, get fatigued over time and start to see some dysfunction. That's my main concern with all the secretagogues, like all the GH secretagogues, GHRP 2, 6, CJC, ipamorelin, tesamorelin, all of those, they're all pretty much the same thing. They're all analogs of growth hormone releasing peptide, and they all work on the pituitary. I just think that forcing an organ to work overtime over months and years could lead to some dysfunction of that organ.
Right. And to put it in layman's terms, as far as like you were just saying on the pancreas, if the pancreas is over to producing insulin, right, to compensate for this, especially like the GLP-3, like the retatrutide or the double agonist, like tirzepatide, you can start to see some fatigue out of the pancreas potentially, right? And what you do see as a major side effect is A, pancreatitis, and then B, and I just had a client bring this up, was the oh my god, the gallbladder. The gallbladder
Yes.
starts to not function properly either, not produce enough bile or produce too much bile because food is staying too long in the small intestine, right? So you're getting some nutrient absorption issues, and I do think that contributes to like what you see is like the Ozempic phase,
Hmm.
which is almost like a malnourishment because you're not absorbing the nutrients the same way as you were prior. And like you were hitting on in the off season, I always found in an off season setting, just doing a moderate amount of cardio in the morning, right, or moderate amount of cardio post workout. Not only does it stimulate the metabolism, but it also stimulates, appetite, lowers insulin sensitivity, and you just stay in shape. And when was it that the fitness industry stopped being about fitness, right?
Hmm. Yeah. It's becoming kind of a taboo topic to speak ill of these compounds. But I find that, just basic hard work, doing your cardio in the off season, which improves blood flow, improves circulation, keeps you lean, and lowers your heart rate. Um, you move more, which has a plethora of benefits. I think that is enough to, keep you insulin sensitive, to stimulate appetite, and just the extra caloric burn keeps you lean enough. I don't think you need to go with an actual drug that is designed either for for fat loss specifically, like I believe the tarzipatide one is Zepbound, I believe. I know there's Monjaro and Zepbound, and one is labeled for diabetes, and the other one is labeled for weight loss. Although both of them are the same drug. It's just something in the wording allows it to be prescribed in certain places or for certain purposes. So you already see that it's the same drug. It's just legality, the phrasing of, oh, this drug does this, allows you to prescribe it to certain people. But if you say, oh, it does this, same drug, but it also does this, allow you to prescribe it for something else. And I find that they're very useful. I think that, for sick individuals, they can be useful. I don't like to see, an obesity epidemic, but I think they also help reinforce bad habits. It's kind of like, okay, I'm just going to take this drug and then I won't do anything else. I won't try to change my eating habits. I won't try to exercise more. I won't try to do anything in addition to form new habits. You're using it as this, to basically, this is your solution. This is not a, let's say, okay, I'm using this to help me get on the right path, and then I'll let healthy diet and exercise actually do the work for me.
Yeah, and what you really see is that people lose weight without having to do the exercise or without having to resistance train. And you do see some bone mineral density loss, you do see muscle mass loss. And because inevitably these people really realize that I don't have to train or I don't have to exercise in order to lose weight, but little do they know they just see the scale going down, but they don't know what the scale is going down from, whether that's lean mass or muscle tissue or what have you. It's just going down and it just doesn't matter. And then what happens is they come off with the rebound hunger is now they have to suppress metabolism because they have less lean mass than they did prior. And they're hungrier than they were before because GLP is a natural hormone that your pituitary produces in small amounts to help you stay satiated, which is actually interesting because when your insulin is high, GLP is actually secreted. So when your blood sugar goes up and insulin is secreted, it actually stimulates GLP, like if you have a big meal or something else like that. So you're in this artificial state of being satiated all the time. And then when you remove the drug, your pituitary doesn't produce that anymore. And the half life of these drugs is outrageous. Like they stay in your system for 5 weeks, depending on the dose after your last injection. So there's this lingering effect that can really have a long lasting, repercussion.
Yeah, yeah. I think that it's a problem, and people just go crazy with the doses because they found that, oh, I can still eat while I take this drug, which should be kind of like, okay, it takes the edge off my appetite or it makes me less food focused, but they're actually looking like, oh, I don't need to eat. The only reason why they feel it that they didn't eat is because their energy levels going down like completely. And that's not a good thing. I think, the Gen Pop um Ozempic user, just as you said, they don't focus on training or eating properly, so they just get smaller. Yes, they lose a lot of fat, but they also lose muscle in the process, and they might, lower their bone mineral density. The bodybuilder is much more muscle mass focused. And yes, he'll eat more protein. Yes, he will probably lower his intake of junk food, but still keep protein high. And of course, with anabolics, muscle mass is much easier to keep. So I just see it in a bodybuilding setting. It is used to suppress cravings and just keep you insulin sensitive. And I'm just gonna plug a little compound that I really think is awesome, which is metformin. It's very cheap, relatively accessible, been around for getting close to 100 years or something like that. Studied, works really well. I know some people hate it because it activates AMPK, but it's nothing to be concerned about. But I think, yeah, metformin works well. Why hunt rabbits with a bazooka when you can use a very precise, very small impact compound like metformin, or just do the 10-minute watts like Stan Efferding says, which is very effective, by the way.
Now, what's the difference between necessarily like getting the metformin or just utilizing 1,500 milligrams of berberine instead?
Uh, I like Well, it depends which kind. If it's berberine HCl, which is a salt of berberine, it's more standardized. The other just berberine extracts are, in my opinion, you can get a very, very different effect from brand to brand, or even depends, if they switch their raw material provider, they might have the berberine, harvested from different season, different country, different soil type. That's why I really prefer more the actual medications versus the supplements. They're more standardized. You can accurately predict their result. But just in a general sense, yes, berberine has been shown to be similarly as effective as metformin. I don't know exactly the dose equivalent, but yes, if you take a let's say dose equated amount of berberine, you can get metformin like effects. I do know that there are some benefits to berberine or touted benefits to berberine versus metformin. I think it's less suppression of IGF-1. I believe that was one, but I think that's mostly related to metformin makes you more insulin sensitive. You need to secrete less insulin. Having less insulin, you get less stimulation of the liver to produce IGF-1, and that leads to lower levels of IGF-1. So metformin is actually a victim of its own success. You lower blood insulin levels, therefore you lower your blood IGF-1 levels. Makes sense if you think of it like that. So, I'm thinking baby berberine is keeps your IGF-1 higher because it's less effective. I can say for sure I didn't look into berberine that well, but I know a lot of people that use it, split it up, 2 to 3 times a day or just single day bolus. Some people say it doesn't give you as many issues with the GI tract. Very few people do mention they get some GI distress from metformin, but I have heard of probably equally as many people reporting that from berberine as well. So one or the other, whichever is more accessible to you or whichever you prefer. There's less of the drug stigma when it comes to berberine as opposed to metformin. So yeah, I can totally see that.
I almost find though you're almost better off going with the metformin because with the drug name behind it, you know that it's efficacious. Rather than when you pick up a supplement, you have no idea. And the older I get, the more, the less often I am to buy supplements because I'm like, man, what is like the efficacy behind this? How do I know that this is actually potentially as strong as it says it's going to be, or potentially has as much whatever compound in it as it says it has in it, versus something that's going to be pharma grade or that is actual a labeled drug is going to be at that specific dose at that specific potency because that's what it was intended for. You know what I'm saying? And how many times have we heard through the supplement ranks, even 10 years ago, where they were spiked or they had this or they were doing that? And how many people have you heard come off of all supplements altogether and they just feel better as a whole? I think the best instance was like Hunter Labrada was doing 4 or 5 shakes a day or 3, 4 shakes a day, something like that. And he cut out the protein powder and his waist came in like 3 or 4 inches. So something like that, where maybe we over supplement stuff and we have to go back to what is actually going to work and what is actually going to move the needle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I find that a lot of people fall into this supplement trap. And hey, we've all been there. I was 17, 18 too, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna take this what was it, metabolic modulator supplement and this frivolous terrestris, whatever, horny goatweed, whatever for testosterone. Like, it's all bullshit. If they actually worked, they would have been, patented and sold as medication in a pharmacy. Supplements, I think, that are very inefficient. I do like some vitamins, some minerals. I think there's a few things that would be useful, but in general, supplements are overpriced, overhyped, and underregulated, which I think is the most important thing. Yeah, as you said, how many times have we heard, Muscle Tech was, I think, one of them that was involved in a scandal way back when, and there were a lot of things that were spiked, and people are like, oh, this supplement has XYZ in it. It's we've heard so many things, and so many supplements have been found to be underdosed. They say, or even they're not even lying; they're just manipulating public perception. What is it? Amino acid spiking. They put cheap glutamine or cheap BCAAs in a protein. They spike the nitrogen content, and like they say, like, oh, we have 25 grams of protein when you're actually getting 10 grams of protein and 15 grams of extra nitrogen from cheap amino acids.
I got to bring up this point was when I did my first show in 2013. I worked with a woman, Gabriella, and she was the training partner of Iris Kyle, and she resided in
Wow.
upstate New York. And the diet was egg whites, chicken, eye round, potatoes, cream of rice, and coconut oil, and 10 almonds before bed. 10. No more, not 11, 10. And I was peeled out of my fucking mind. Zero water retention, striations all the way up. I did like shit. I was, didn't do very well, but I definitely came in shape. And with that being said, I think there is efficacy for just getting rid of all the bullshit and just going back to bare bones and what's been tried and true and what's worked for over 100 years for guys. What's really like, and you almost have to think you see so much digestive distress, right? You see so many people with like gut issues and digestion issues and so many people with distension now where it's almost like I wonder what would happen if we just went back to just very a bare bones approach, right? Like how many
Yeah.
guys do you know who can't tolerate like fruits and vegetables? But then at the same time, yeah, 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 yeah. But if you were to add them in slowly, if you were to add them in slowly and just cut everything else out, went to solid food, maybe 6 meals a day, would that improve? You know,
I think so. I think, outside of actual food allergies, and I'll give credit to Milo Sarcev because he is a stickler when it comes to testing for food allergies. He is very meticulous with that.
really, I didn't know that. I've actually been doing deep
I
dives on Milos lately.
Yeah, I'm not sure, his methods might have changed over the years. I know he was a very big fan of getting food sensitivity and food allergy tests. And I think that's a fantastic idea because you might not be lactose intolerant, but you might be sensitive. So that might cause a bit of water retention, a bit of distension, a bit of inflammation or GI distress. Um, and as you said, some things, you might want to try reintroducing them. And of course, there are the people who just can't stomach certain things. I for the life of me, I just can't stomach high fiber. I live on a very low fiber diet. I tried. I've been. I've eliminated fiber slowly because I started. The less I eat, the better I feel. The less distended I am. And every time I try to reintroduce some higher fiber foods, it just wrecks my stomach. I could tolerate, certain amounts and certain foods. Yeah, but like I can't go with, the typical thing that I usually recommend my clients do, 30-ish grams of fiber a day. Like, yeah, that will wreck me. I probably go with maybe 15 personally. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think whole foods are better than trying to rely on shakes and supplements. Uh, Shakes are just when I say shakes, I just think of as dextrose versus whole fruits. That's a protein shake versus a steak. It's highly processed, fast acting, fast absorbing um protein. The only difference is that it comes from milk and it also has a lot of artificial sweeteners and colors and additives, which I don't think is a problem. Some people are really against the artificial sweeteners. I think that you don't have to overload on them, but I don't think it's going to kill you if you have a protein shake a day or like a Diet
dude,
Coke.
I live on artificial sweeteners. Let me tell you.
There you go. There you
I
go.
drink so much diet soda, you have no idea. I go to this, so I have a little routine, and it's super funny. When I'm done training at House of Gains, I'll drive up the road, and there's a gas station called the QT. It's right up the road, And they
Mm.
have one of those special soda machines that has like all the varieties of diet sodas in there. And I always get the Sprite Zero or a caffeine free Diet Coke. And I'll drink, like literally sit there post workout and I'll drink 2 or 3 liters. Like I'll drink the first refill, pay for the refill, go back, fill it up, drink, and then fill it up again on my way home. And they see, like, I'm there every day. And they like know me first name bit. They're like, "Hey, you're early today. Like, what's going on?" And sometimes they're just like, it's on us. Don't worry about it, guy. And like, like a good coffee shop or something. And then I get home and test my blood glucose, and it's always like super low. And it's like, well, yeah, you drank 3 liters of fluid. Like, of course it's gonna be low. Like, duh. So we
Yeah.
are actually just now that we were talking about Milo's pancreas, secretagogues, all that jazz. Does insulin have an application in like your, let's say your weekend warrior or your, amateur guy, or let's say your, what is the effect, like, what is the, what is your take on insulin usage with the, with the physique community? Does it have efficacy? Because a lot of people now, the trend is to like that it's Stone Age shit.
Hmm. I think insulin has been demonized way too much. I think all the horror stories about going hypoglycemic are, I'm not saying they're not true, but I think it is first off, insulin is used as a medication. So it is used for people who have no medical training whatsoever. They just, this is your pen, this is how you use it, you take it, or you die. If you're type 1 diabetic, it's pretty much a no-brainer. So it has a medical application, and I think that people have this belief that insulin, like any insulin, will put you in a coma, that you have to, be very cautious. And I don't want to say shit because I don't want somebody to just take this the wrong way and run with it. But I've known some people that have grossly misdosed insulin, and yeah, they went hypo. But what they did is like, oh, I just ran to the corner store and I just started munching on donuts and gummy bears and every sweet that I could find. I just chugging Gatorade and iced tea, and I was fine. Like, and the dose was not small. I was like, you're not very bright. Like I was like, I'm sorry, but you're not very bright. Um, I think for the weekend warrior, the Gen Pop gym goer, I don't think it's something that you should consider until you've exploited other avenues. I don't think it's something like, oh, I'm just gonna go to the gym, and I'm gonna use insulin. Like, I don't think that's how things should go. I see all of these compounds as tools. You use the right tool to get the job done, period. Each of them have their own risk reward ratio, benefits, negatives. I don't really like to say side effects because we actually take
They're
some
just
medications for
effects.
this.
They're just
Exactly.
effects. Like
There you
lower your
go.
blood glucose is what it's supposed to do. Obviously, you're
Correct.
supposed to supply sufficient glucose if you're going to
Yeah.
do this. And like, what's interesting to me is like how lean, Milo Sarshev stayed with it. And then I've heard even Austin Sow talk about how when he's used it in off seasons that they've stayed leaner, that they've had better metabolic, better nutrient partitioning. And so here's my thing: is like I know that your thing is longer, lower, slower, or at least that's what I gather, right?
Yeah.
Is it now? Does fast acting insulin have a place? And if so, is some of the lore around it kind of true, where you shouldn't eat any fats around it, and it's this huge storage compound where like you cannot have like any trace fats whatsoever, else to be stored as intramuscular triglycerides? Do you think it's attributed to distension? Because we do see some guys who used insulin. Milos, another example where he had zero distension whatsoever, but then you see other guys where they had these huge bloated guts, and everybody knows that they were utilizing every compound under the sun. Is it more diet related, or is this something that is compound related?
I see that as if you look at populations that are not PD users that have columboism, distended abdomen without being overly fat, you think alcoholics. That is liver and pancreas stress. That is organ stress from all the compounds they're eating. And that's also distension from just the food volume. So I don't believe in the GH gut or the insulin gut. I think it's all related to how much stress you're putting on your organs and just how much food you have in your gut. Milos is a perfect example. Used a lot of insulin, didn't have that issue. Now, fast versus slow. I think if you're just looking to bring up overall insulin levels to synergize with GH to get the most out of your IGF-1, I think a long-acting, Lantus or Tresiba, a longer-acting insulin in the morning, I think it would be better. If you're looking for what Milos does is he pairs that with carbohydrates to enhance the workout window. Basically, he says you don't want to be catabolic during your workout. And whether I agree or not with him, it works. Like obviously for him and his athletes. So he's not wrong. He just uses a different approach. Yes, I think you should avoid eating excessive fats, but I don't think you should like, oh, if I'm taking insulin now, I have to have zero fats. No, you can have it with, a chicken breast and some rice. And, if you use a bit of olive oil on your chicken breast, using 5 to 10, I use a fast acting insulin with a 10 to 15 gram of fat meal, I don't think that's going to be an issue. Now, if you use it with, Ben and Jerry's, which is a lot of fat, then yeah, you might get some of that fat partition into fat cells.
Yeah, you almost hear of guys like wanting to use like a fast acting insulin with a cheat meal. And like I'm like, whoa, what are we doing here? Like unless you're like outrageously depleted. And even then, it's like, why would you? Because your fat cells are so sensitive. I almost think it's like not even appropriate, right? Unless you're in like you said, like a growth phase, or like Milos's application, like during a workout, which he is big on, like just the carbohydrates, because the carbohydrates are going to what fuel performance, and that's what you're doing during the workout window is fueling performance. And a cheat meal is not necessarily fueling performance; it's more of a hedonic thing that we just do. I mean, we might rationalize that it's for performance, but at the end of the day, like you could eat some extra rice and it will be fine. Maybe some sodium and you'd be okay. Now we got 4 minutes left. We're going to do some closing notes. I do have so many other things I want to ask you about, but let's close up here for this episode. And then when you have time, or if ever you want to do this again, I'd be more than happy, and I would be honored to have you on again. But where can people find you? How can they inquire with you? And go ahead, put all your information in.
Well, just my Instagram, my name, Mircea, Mircabjr that's my on Instagram, and email is same thing at gmail.com. That is me. I pretty much respond to messages. If I not, I'm just busy or traveling, but I try to get to everybody as soon as I can.
Well, listen, man, I love and appreciate the fact that you took out this time. We're going to continue, chatting and being friends and doing all the things and collaborating over Doom. And, if ever you want to do this again, I would love to have you on and talk about some other shit.
It will be my pleasure. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Anytime.
Anytime.